Okay, should be working on. Hey Arjun, how are you? Welcome everyone. We'll wait about a couple more minutes, and we can start with our masterclass taught by Alfonso and me. So pleasure to have you, Alfonso, again.
Thank you, Victor. Here we are again.
Yep. Yep. It's going to be a fun afternoon today. Setting up everything. As you can see, I bought a lot of stuff from Japan. So that's why my background has changed a bit. As you have seen, I am a very great fan of Dragon Ball. So I bought a lot of stuff plus some stickers from the AWS Summit that we had. So yeah, a lot of updates in my background. AWS getting free promo there. So yeah, 40 people. Welcome everyone. I'm glad to see some familiar names. Um, I'm glad to see some new names in the chat. Welcome to Shasha, Matthew, Ricardo, Jose, Isadora. How are you? Yal, great to have you here. Diane as well. And yeah, so let us have a couple more minutes. Let me also share. Let me also move this screen to the bottom so I can have you guys full screen. Okay. Okay. Yeah, this way is better, I think, to everyone. Welcome. Oh, that's fine.
Hi, people
Hey,
joining
everyone.
still.
So let me start with the presentation, and maybe we can kick things off. Everyone can see my screen?
Yeah, seems so.
Okay,
At least I
good
can.
deal. Let me know if there is anything, and then we can start.
No.
Okay, great. Yeah, awesome. Now. So welcome everyone to our masterclass about tagging and governance. We are going to dive deep into the tips and tricks about tagging, governance, naming convention, and everything related to it, so you can become better at your FinOps practice, especially oriented to the cost allocations, and we'll try to unlock the myths about governance, about tagging, because it's a very controversial topic, and we want to let you know all that we know around the topic. And you should stay till the end because we have a good announcement to the attendees. So please stay till the end because we are going to show you something that we have been preparing for a couple of time, and it's going to be great for your summer. So without
And
further
Victor,
ado,
if I may,
yeah,
sorry to interrupt you. If I may also, we have another session for next week, and let
yeah.
us differentiate the two because they may seem like they are related. This session is fully focused on tagging and naming conventions, the governance, how to enforce, how to create a tagging strategy, how to create a naming convention, what things to think on, what's the value, and all of this. Okay, this is today. And next week, we have a different session fully focused on cost allocation. So if any of you is interested in cost allocation, next session will be the perfect session for you because what I'm going to show you is a success story, a actual architecture I have designed and devised in Azure to exactly solve all these problems. And the first step in this journey is applying some tagging strategy. So that's for next week, tagging strategy and then cost allocation through tagging. Okay. So we are aligned on what to expect today and next week as well.
Yeah, for sure. I have to say that I've seen the presentation forum Alfonso about next week, and it's going to be great. So I will also recommend you to go to that one as well because I think It's nothing that you have seen in other stuff, and it's something that you can learn with him. And it's a and it's something you can apply in your work, which is what we try to apply every time that we do a webinar. Okay, so today's goal is going to be move you from here where you cannot understand your cloud bill, where you cannot see anything that you have in your cost, and you just see a large invoice with a lot of SKUs and without understanding what that's mean for your business, to here, to someone that is able to understand what is going on. Yeah, and it's the a pleasure to read, and you are able to understand and correlate it to your business value, which is the main goal of FinOps, that to be able to optimize the value that you get out of the cloud or your IT spending in general, now that we are moving more into the cloud plus space. So, who will help you today? Me, Victor Garcia, the founder of FinOps Weekly, and Alfonso San Miguel, who is the author of Efficient Cloud FinOps, which is one of the best books you can find in the market, and also he's the lead cloud architect for B2 Impact. And it's a pleasure to have him with us to help us with tagging and governance. And here's I would like to stay with a story about how I realized the value of tagging and naming conventions, right? Because when I was doing some cloud optimization exercise, I was able to read some billing purposes, and there wasn't I didn't understand anything, and I assume that's the first impression that everyone gets once you get your AWS, your Azure, your GCP invoice, right? And I didn't understand anything, and I went to my team, and it was like, do we have some tags to the resources? Do we understand what's creating the spend apart from this or that driver? How do we create the resources? How are we able to map what we create to our projects, to everything? Are the projects correctly named so they are easily to identify? They told me, no, nothing there is done. And the moment that we created the naming convention, so we were able to create in this case, GCP projects based on a structure that was easily able to be mapped to the team and to the environment, which was too fairly, and the business unit, of course. It was fairly easy to track what are the costs that that specific project for that specific unit for that specific environment was driving. And that made us identify if dev environments were growing a lot, or if production environments were creating were having a lot of cost, and especially we could take action on the environment instances, automatic scaling. So the naming convention, only having a very good naming convention and enforcing it to the whole organization, made us be able to track and to allocate resources properly with just a simple change. So that's when I realized that having your resources mapped, either with tagging or with naming convention, was really valuable for the business and for the financial side of the cloud. And as I mentioned, tagging and naming conventions are the key to the cloud cost allocation and to the governance, because without them, especially, you cannot do anything almost. Cost allocation and governance should start from the naming conventions, because that's the first thing that you do when you create a resource in the cloud. You need to put a name. You need to put something in that resource. And if you have a naming conventions and a name generator or a strong name policy, you are able to map things like the department, the business unit, the environment, etc., if you do it on account level, folder level, project level, that only doing that, as I mentioned in the previous example, will provide you with so many information, and the only thing that you have to do is just have a simple definition of 3, 4 parameters, And the main important thing is enforce it using a policy. And tagging, it's also a very controversial topic. Some people say that you don't need it, some people say that you need it. But for complex, or in my opinion, and based on my what I've researched, based on what Alfonso taught in his book and in his shares, I do think that tagging for complex environment especially provides you with a granularity that almost anything can do. And also for non-complex environment, it can help you identify things that naming convention doesn't reach. Because naming conventions are very good, but they are still limited on resources and on inheritance and on different things. So when naming convention, which is a wonderful resource, can't help you, leverage tagging, because tagging, the good thing is that is available across environments. So even though GCP, Azure, and AWS differ in how tagging is done, tagging is always possible on these resources. So this way, you can have the granularity and the cost allocation that you need. So have this idea in mind that tagging and naming conventions are the key, are everything to your cost allocation and governance. And without further ado, I would like to give the floor to Alfonso so he can start sharing with us the pros and cons and the benefits and all the tips and tricks about tagging and naming conventions.
Okay, thank you, Victor. Let's begin this. I hope you are prepared to receive some information. At least in my experience, this is the idea. Okay, let's begin. For me, tagging and naming conventions go way beyond FinOps. What this means is they enable cloud governance. When we want to govern cloud resources, it's not only about cost optimization, cost allocation, is way more. We need to be able to control our resources. We need to infer some information from the names, and information is power. Let me explain why. If I am an engineer and I need to waste time just to decode a name to understand what this name is trying to say, then my naming convention is not good. What I want is a name that any engineer will read and they will understand. Let's imagine a situation, for example, we have our security operation services, our SOC services, and then we have an alert on a computer, okay, a security threat, the highest level critical security threat in this virtual machine called test 123. What is this virtual machine? Who is the owner of this? Which team is managing this virtual machine? On which environment this virtual machine is? We have no idea about anything. Of course, we can look in the CMDB if where is the virtual machine, who it belongs to, but this is not useful. But on the other hand, if I have a name such as this one, the one I'm pasting in the chat, then maybe I can say, okay, this virtual machine is an Azure virtual machine, most probably with Ubuntu. It is a web app and it belongs to production environment. Of course, it's just an example. I could use many other name components as part of my name, but you can see already the utility. I don't need to waste time. And sorry, but in the cloud, with how pressed we are always for resources, time equals money. That's the reality. Okay, so way more than only FinOps. Okay, but now, Victor, let's go ahead. Let's begin from the beginning. What is tagging? Okay, tagging is nothing new. What we are doing when we tag our resources is to add metadata. So we are putting essentially some labels to provide some context and meaning. Okay, it's clear. But okay, how can tagging help me in cost management? I can already do some cost allocation, for example, just by using cloud providers tools, because, for example, the cloud providers help me list resources by region, by account in AWS, by resource group in Azure, all these kind of logical cloud ways of distributing resources in the cloud. Okay, but what they cannot do is to align all these kind of logical divisions with my business. So I see tagging as the gap, as the way to bridge the gap between the technical and the business. Why? Because if my organization, imagine that I have a company and my company is organized in business units, and every business unit has different locations, and then I have different applications. I can implement this structure in my tagging strategy actually. So I can be able to distribute logically my resources among these kind of logical key divisions that I set up for my company. So for me, it's a way to bridge the business with the technical. It's not something that's irrelevant. It gives a lot of meaning. It helps a lot because if I am able to do this, then I am able to tell the business, this is how much this application is costing you. This is how much this business unit is spending in the cloud. This is how much investment applications are costing us every month, for example. So I think this is the essence of what tagging can do. Okay, this is a really good, interesting, Matthew. I read you. One of the things I consider always is, you have a naming convention. Does it need to be humanly readable? Maybe if security is a concern for you, you don't need it to have human readable naming convention, but then you need a clear decoder that anyone can use, available for everyone. I don't know, a web application, something like that, that decodes your name to make it kind of human understandable for any human. Okay, so I totally support your idea of having non-readable names. Sometimes it's a good choice, but then you need to have the tools to support this kind of approach. Okay, so yeah, I was saying, okay, imagine that I have all this visibility about how much each unit is spending and so on and so forth. For me, this is key. Why? Because then I can identify where should I focus my optimization effort on. If I see that my investment applications cost are through the roof, then maybe I need to focus my efforts there. Okay, so that's how important this is. Okay, next point. What are the essential components that any naming convention should have? Of course, when we think on a naming convention, we think in the naming rules. Okay, we need to put AZ, VM for VMs, then a numeral at the end, these kind of rules. This is a standard naming convention rules. And of course, we need to have a clear component description and the resource type. And for example, what I call name components. The first name component in the name I put in the chat would be the cloud. The cloud can be AZ. Maybe we can say AW as AWS, GC as GCP, whatever. If we have a 2-character name component, this could be one, no? And like this, we should have this kind of description for any name component that we devise. Okay. We also include in our naming convention other possible conventions. Imagine that all my projects are coded with a 3-number code, for example, or that my CMDB assets have a specific format. Maybe I can incorporate this into my naming convention. So it's really important to also align in this kind of name components how we call our environments. Do we call them dev, test, pre-production, or we call them I don't know, UAT, production, and dev, whatever. No, these kind of things also help us align. And of course, part of my naming convention should be also how I'm going to enforce it. Because let me tell you one thing: if you have one naming convention and you are explaining this is how it works, but you don't have anything to control that it's in use, that people are using it, and ways to also enforce its use, is going to be really hard for you to push it across, especially really complex and really big organizations. And last but not least, I need to define what are the resources subject to my naming convention. Okay, we need to say, okay, everything in Azure, in AWS, and in Google. Of course, the first thing I would think is, let's have everything, but maybe we want to have a step-by-step application, something like that. So for me, this is a good approach on what we could incorporate in our naming convention. Okay, let's continue, Victor. Now, the same idea, but for a tagging policy. What we should do, of course, is to select some tags that we want to use. We will deep dive on this, like how big the set of tags should be later in this session. I will give you my opinion on this. Imagine that we choose, okay, cost center, application, environment, business owner, technical owner, whatever we think. Okay, we need to agree which format these tags are going to take. Are they going to have fixed values? For example, I usually use environment. For me, it's a clear fixed value field tag. I mean, dep, 3 characters, for example, dep, pre, pro, this could be one, or we can limit it to one character, but in tagging, we are not so constrained by length. So I think it's preferable to be properly readable, let's say. Okay, and format and usage. This is really important. Why do I have the tag? What's the use case for each tag? If I have the tag business unit, maybe it's because I need to do cost allocation, show back or chargeback to my business units. If I have a tag called application, maybe it's because I need to get the cost of each application. And the same idea for a project, no? If I create a tag for a project with a specific format, it's because I need this tag for cost allocation purposes. So I always, what I do is to document every tag and say, this is the tag, this is the description, this is the fixed values, this is the use case for this tag. A tag, I mean, if I just put out there some tags for people to use without a use case, they are not going to adopt it because they won't see the use in it. And it will be much harder for me to push its application. So please make sure that everyone understands why this tag is there and how it's useful for everyone. Okay, this is really important. Of course, a tagging strategy is nothing as well without enforcement and overseeing mechanism. Or as Victor was saying, I can approach tags in multiple ways. I can assign them automatically. This is one approach. I can assign them in infrastructure as code and have some controls to deny creation of resources that are not compliant to my tagging strategy. And I can also rely on a tagging inheritance. There are different ways in each cloud to implement tagging inheritance. In Azure is Azure policies. In AWS is AWS tagging policies. In Google, tagging inheritance, it's only limited to tags because in Google, there are two tag-like features, tags and labels. They are so different. And yeah, we need to know the different tools that we have and we need to document everything. This is really important. So yeah, and to end this slide, tagging automation, inheritance, use cases, really important. Okay, as I was saying, just adding 20 tags and leave it like that, it won't work because we need clearly documented use cases. We need our tags to be simple, to be really to have a lot of clarity. Anyone should be able to understand our tags, even finance guys, for example, or engineering teams or product owners. They should be pretty understandable for anyone in our organization. That's why it's so challenging in my opinion, to create a really good balanced tagging strategy that provides value being simple. Okay, this is really important for me. Also, we need to have a tagging strategy that's consistent and standardized and scalable as well. We need to be able to scale to accommodate different regions, different organizations, even multiple companies and multiple clouds, all these things. I need to think on all these things. And as I was saying, I need to be able to enforce this through policies. If I have the most complex tagging policy that's impossible to enforce, maybe it's not the best one for me. And it needs to be efficient and simple. Sometimes when we think on tagging, we try to think on the most complex things, and tagging can be really simple. Maybe you only need 2 tags, and that will already provide value for you. And okay, to set this discussion and to start up this discussion, let's go to the next one. Victor, I want to hear opinions on this next slide. With this small introduction we have just finished, what do you think goes first? The chicken or the egg? Naming convention or tagging strategies? You can leave your opinions in the chat, and I will be happy to read them. And of course, comment a little bit. Naming conventions, okay. Naming conventions, we have, for now, it's clear. Okay, I agree with most of the opinions. I will explain why. They can go in parallel. This is really interesting, Matthew. Naming convention is easier to implement generally. Why? Because you can just set up a naming convention, and from that moment on, you can have it on the resources. The problem of the resources that are already created is that you need to redeploy them, except in AWS. In AWS, the name is one other tag like any other, so you usually can change the name, okay? On the other hand, naming convention usually includes only the basic information, and tagging strategy can extend this information a little bit. If we make a mistake defining a naming convention, it will be so difficult to correct it afterwards. So we need to think good on our naming convention before putting it live. On the other hand, if we make a mistake in our tagging strategy, we can modify it because the tags can be modified at any time without any impact on the resource. The resource does not need to be redeployed. If we have a virtual machine, we don't need to delete it and recreate it again. So that's why the tagging is kind of simpler to iterate, and the naming convention is more complicated. But the naming convention, you don't need so many components as the tagging. So I agree. I have made this choice, and I have begun first with the naming convention, but thinking that tagging strategy was the thing to do after that, of course, directly, because you cannot do everything with a naming convention. You can do a lot, but not everything, because the information it provides is limited. And I give you also some food for thought. Should we repeat information between our naming convention and tagging? This can be an interesting approach. What's the use in repeating information? If your cost allocation processes, imagine that I have focus exports in Azure, or I work with these cloud intelligence dashboards in AWS. If I have it in my naming convention, maybe I can have some process to programmatically extract some parts of the name, but I would prefer to have it in a tag, in a JSON format, to parse the JSON format into columns, something like that. So yes, in my opinion, we should repeat some parts of the information, but we need to select which ones I need to repeat and why. As always, we need to think why we need to repeat the information. This is the key thing to think. We don't do anything just for the sake of doing it. We think on why. What's the strategy behind this? Okay. Okay. Let's go. Victor, let's go ahead. The benefits. Of course, we have mentioned already that a good tagging strategy help us gain visibility on cloud spending, cost allocation, all these things. But for me, it goes way beyond cost allocation. I can support operations by using tagging. I will give you an example. I can put in my virtual machines, in my EC2 instances, I can put a tag that explains what's the maintenance window for this virtual machine. So anyone from operations will go to this virtual machine. They will see in the tag that it can be resetted on Sundays, and they will apply the patches on Sundays, and that's on, without the need of going through the operation manuals or documentation about this virtual machine. So really useful, but also for automation. Imagine that I have an environment equals development in all my virtual machines in development environment. I could set up a runbook automation, let's say, that every night it will shut down all the virtual machines in my development environment. All the virtual machines that have the tag environment equals development. So really, really powerful. It can also be, and this approach of tags can also be used for airbag. In AWS, you can provide IAM permissions through by using tags, and it's the same thing in Google. You cannot do that in Azure. You can only use tags for block permissions and so on. Azure, unfortunately, is lagging in this regard. But as you can see, it's already a strong point for security. No? So for compliance and regulations, imagine that I have some resources in my company that are subject to DORA or ISO 27001. I could use a tag to mark them. Like these resources need to be treated especially or carefully because they are subject to a specific regulation. They cannot be moved out. I cannot move them to another region, these kind of things. I could use tags to get all this information. So really interesting. And also for information security, I can have something like ISMS classification to classify how critical the data in a database is, for example, things like that. So as you can see, for me, tagging goes way beyond just cost allocation and FinOps. So really, really interesting. Okay, Victor, let's go ahead. And what are the key tools in the FinOps toolbox? I know this can be a little overwhelming, but for me, all these things are essential to get the most out of tags in each cloud. And I always recommend everyone to learn how to get the most out of each one of these tools. In Azure, we have JSON tags, and this is the possibility that you can put JSON structure inside the value of a tag. And this is really useful because you can pass the JSON, like you can make compound tags with just using one tag key, let's say, and one JSON value. This is really interesting. Of course, we can use Azure policy. There is this feature called cost management inheritance. I don't like it so much, but I think it's really interesting. We can use resource graph to query for resources, to search for resources with specific tags. Same idea with Azure CLI, PowerShell. We should be able to apply tags at scale with Azure Bicep. We can use Azure automation with tags to implement this example I was saying about shutdown of virtual machines in development environments. I can have a log analytic workbook to have a dashboard of all my tagging, all my tagged resources and how compliant they are with my tagging policies. I need to control and understand all these tools. In AWS, I need to know the difference. Yeah, I know, Thales. I love this feature in AWS. It's not something that is out of the box in Azure, but in AWS, you have this godsend default tags that are applied to all resources in the Terraform project. By default, you need to know that this is a way to apply tags at scale. The difference between AWS and generate user tags and generated tags. The CloudFormation, how to apply tags, how to use SCP policies, config policies, and AWS tagging policies to leverage tagging in different ways. They are different tools. You need to understand the difference between each one of them and what they can do for you. AWS config is more about compliance. AWS tagging policies are more about tagging inheritance and applying tags directly to resources. And SCP are more about preventing things to happen. For example, I can deny EC2 instance to be started if it doesn't have the proper tags. So I think it's really, really interesting how powerful, how many things you can do with all these tools. Cost allocation tags, you need to activate cost allocation tags before seeing them in AWS billing reports and so on and so forth. I need to be able to also use comfortably AWS CLI to query for tags and to use tools such as JRep and all these Linux tools to query for things. Okay, and in Google, do you know the difference between the labels and tags? Because I have read the documentation in Google and it's not good regarding tags. So I have been covering all these things and documenting these are the difference, these are the things you can do with labels, with tags, how to implement the deny rules and deny creation of resources that don't have the specific labels you want or the tags you want, how you can export building export to BigQuery and they will incorporate your tags, the tag holds that prevent tags to be modified. All these little features, for me, they should be part of, this is the FinOps toolbox I'm using for tags. So yeah, tags, Francisco, tags are the ones that are related to organization, folders, and projects. Labels are the ones that can be specified at resource level. The tags can only be applied from the organization or the different, yeah, exactly. But yeah, it's so confusing. I am also confused with that. But yeah, I totally. So yeah, I'm Victor as well. Yeah. Okay, let's go forward. We are going to cover another topic. I think it's essential to kind of understand what I'm trying to convey here. I cannot do tagging. I cannot do naming convention without considering two things: infrastructure as code, and the second one, Kubernetes cluster. Let me begin with infrastructure as code, Terraform, CloudFormation, whatever you name it. We need to be able to apply tags at scale using infrastructure as code. And the same thing with naming. There is this concept in programming, no, called dry. Don't repeat yourself. You need to apply this dry concept when implementing names. Are you repeating the names in each resource, or are you using variables, for example, to say business unit, and then I get the business unit, and then I get this information? Like, you can do it in a lot of ways. And I think it's really important to leverage tools such as this default tags in AWS, maybe locals, it's another option of doing this, or using variables, because if we use this, we can just apply in 2 sentences, we can apply the tags to all resources really easily. Then, so tagging is not about manually doing it everywhere. Even naming convention is the same idea. The idea is we should have it, we should shift left, sorry to bring this conversation, same as we do with FinOps, but it's the same. We should shift left the idea of names and tagging. We should put it in the beginning of the process. Infrastructure as code should implement everything for us. We shouldn't do anything manually, okay? Okay, so that's kind of the approach. This is Terraform as code. You need to understand how to apply tags and names in Terraform to the Terraform, CloudFormation, Azure Bicep. This is essential for me. And the second part, Kubernetes. Kubernetes is here to stay. This is something that's clear for all of us. And we need to also leverage these ideas of tagging in Kubernetes. Why? Because in Kubernetes, we don't have tags, we have labels, but usually we need the labels to do cost allocation. And again, not only cost allocation, but operations. Everything that I was saying about tags is also true for Kubernetes. We can tag our containers with the environment that our containers belong to, for example, or which project or which application, everything. I can understand why this container is here. I can infer the same information from a container by using this idea. And I know that there are some tools such as KubeCost, OpenCost. There are many other tools that do InfraCost, I think, that work with containers and allocate the cost for us, but we need to have the labels in place. So another question, do you know how to apply tags at scale, or labels, sorry, in Kubernetes? This is really important. Do you know how to enforce labels in Kubernetes? This is also really important. There are tools such as Kyverno, OPA Gatekeeper, where you can set up some policies and you can deny creation of containers that are not compliant to the naming conventions or to the tagging policies. So that's how important these two things are for me. I think they are essential to kind of complete the picture of how I propose to apply tags and to have proper naming convention to cover everything there is, no? Okay, and let's change the subject a little bit. We have prepared these Mythbusters, busting myths about tagging and naming convention, to have some fun. Let's begin, Victor. I think, okay, everyone is saying, I read this a lot. Tagging is hard to define and implement. It's impossible. I don't understand what tagging is, and it's horrible. Okay, let's try to bust this first myth. I will explain. As you know, I'm the lead architect in B2Impact. I will explain what I did in B2Impact as the perfect example of this. No? When I joined, it was kind of a green field in Azure, and they have some. They didn't have any naming convention. They didn't have any tagging policy. So, of course, the first thing I did was to create a naming convention based in my experience. I created a name generator that everyone should use before to create the names of all the cloud resources we deployed. And I created a tagging strategy. And how complex this tagging strategy is not complex at all. It's only 6 tags, really simple tags. Business owner, technical owner. This is the department. The business owner is the email of the person owning the business person that ultimately owns an application, something like that. Technical owner is the team, for example, MLOps or infrastructure, whatever. Environment, really simple. Dev, pro, nothing special. Source, I usually have a source tag saying, is this resource created from Terraform or is this resource created from the portal? Because unfortunately, there are some resources that can only be created from the portal. So as you can see, nothing special. It's just 6 really standard tags that bring nothing new to the table, that provide. Business unit was another one, 3-character fixed ISO country code, nothing special. So I just proposed these 6 tags. I properly justified why we need them, and I documented everything so it's clear for everyone. And then I hand this to our operations team that was being set up by then. This is how to set up a tagging strategy. It's not like rocket science. It's it can be simple as well. We don't need to overcomplicate. We don't need to have to find 25 tags to have success with tagging. And for example, in this case, I began with 6 tags, and later on, I added a non-mandatory tag for application because I wanted to also group some resources that belong to the same application, maybe across different resource groups, things like that. So clear use case, everything properly documented, everything properly justified. It works. It's not so hard. Okay. Okay, Victor. Let's continue. Next myth. Okay, I am a small company. I don't need tagging. Yeah, I love this one. This can be one can think that this is maybe it makes so much sense. You are a small company. Maybe even if you have a handful of cloud resources, tagging can help you understand your spending based on this kind of logical divisions that I was saying. Do you know how much each application is costing? Do you match, for example, new insights such as, do you know how much your development environments are costing? Because sometimes I find out that development environments cost twice the price of production environments. Is this something that makes sense? Maybe this makes sense if my company is focused on development and they have a lot of developers working like on features and bugs and things like that. But if I have one developer, maybe I have found an interesting insight and we need to optimize the development environment or to control the spend in some ways. So being small doesn't justify, in my opinion, not having tags. And also, let's not forget, any small company, any startup can be bought by Google or any bigger company, and suddenly your needs have changed. And then you need to have everything, and they will ask for everything, I will tell you. So regardless of the size, I think tagging is valuable. And again, let's think, tagging doesn't need to be complex, in my view. Okay, Victor, next myth. Okay, this is another one. My organization is too big and complex for tagging. It spans different countries. It's impossible. They don't have centralized FinOps teams. Of course, it would be useful, but how to approach this? I don't have the power to tell the head of the CTO to tell we need tagging, no? How to kind of tackle this challenge? How to apply this in such company? Okay. As always, I think we should begin simple. You should start small. You should break the ice. If we have a really incredible big company and we cannot do this kind of up to bottom approach, maybe we should take the other way around. Let's do it bottom up. We could establish a good relationship with a specific business unit. We can document a good tagging strategy or a good naming convention and explain to them what's the use case, what's the benefit they are going to get, and maybe do a proof of concept on what the benefits and the value of implementing this is. And maybe we can implement it in just one business unit. And if we have it in one business unit, maybe others will take note if we are able to make visible, no, how valuable this can be, no. So I think this could be a good way. Of course, I'm not saying it will be simple doing this. It won't be simple, but you will be able to kind of do it and get some small success that will lead you to bigger success in the future. Okay. So these are the 3 myths. Sorry, we are going a little fast, but every time Victor leaves me the ground to talk about things, I spend just 1 hour and a half about things. So yeah, we try to keep it short for everyone to enjoy and to have some room for questions and things like that. Okay, this is another. It's not a myth, but it's something we wanted to take before finishing. Okay, we are always pressed for resources. We know how difficult, everyone in this call, I guess, knows how difficult it is to get more budget for FinOps, to get more resources, to incorporate more people in the teams, to have people that are dedicated to controlling tasks, to creating this kind of value, to creating naming conventions, to control all of this. As I was saying in the previous slide, make a small change, show the results to people, and get buy-in from there. This is the key for me. As an example, I am currently working as lead cloud architect in B2 Impact, but I was working before this experience. I was working for 2 years as a FinOps lead, let's say, in a big bank in Spain. I was fully dedicated to FinOps. Right now, I am not fully dedicated to FinOps. I do what I can, but what I can is sometimes enough because I am explaining this is what I'm going to do. These are the things I'm going to implement. For example, tagging strategy. I'm now working in, I have finished this big cost allocation project that I will show you next week. So I do things that bring value. I don't need to be fully allocated to FinOps to do this. I can already tell my COO in direct meetings with him what's the value of FinOps and how I'm bringing value to kind of buy in on the idea that I need more FinOps resources with me. No, if they want us to kind of continue controlling the cost and optimizing the cost, we need more resources. But you can do that with low resources. So really good point, Francisco. FinOps is free. It's free. You get a tool and then it's free. Who will control the tool? Who will oversee the tool? Who will be on top of everyone? Who will be teaching the engineering things? Who will be? It's so difficult, I know, but you need to make small changes, quick wins, and then get buy-in from these quick wins. And slowly you will get some support and some drive to do real things with Reach. Okay, so yeah, with this, I think I give the grounds to Victor again. I try to give you some knowledge pills about a really, really lengthy topic. I could be speaking about this for hours, but it goes beyond this webinar, of course.
No.
Thank you, Victor.
We are way better. We are on very well timing. So thanks, Alfonso, for sharing this with us. And I wanted to, ask you a question to the audience about what we have seen today, right? Like if you have, all this knowledge about tagging and naming conventions and everything that we have seen today, and then you use these naming conventions and these tagging policies with the infrastructure as code, with the policies that we have defined, and with everything and all the tools that we have provided. Would you think that you would be able to do cost allocation in your company, or at least do it better than you are doing right now? I would like to know your answer in the chat, because we are sharing value, we are providing strategies, but we want to know your view. How many of you are overwhelmed by all the tools that we have shared? So we'd like to share with you some additional information at the end, but first of all, I want to know your thoughts about what we have shared today. So please drop your thoughts in the chat, and I will be chatting about a little bit now. Okay, better than the current way this is with this. Yeah, thanks a lot. Thanks, Amir. So because that's our target, and that's why we explain the different tools and the different tips and tricks that Alfonso shared. Polite, thanks for attending. One of the most supporting members of the FinOps community. Thanks for having that.
In my opinion, Victor, if I may,
Yeah.
I could have the typical session where I explain these are possible components to use in that. No, I don't want to focus on that because there is one tagging strategy, perfect tagging strategy for each organization, and you are the ones that know which one is it. What I am trying is to highlight the value of doing things with a proper justification behind, with a proper use case, to think on the key things that you need to consider, no? I can. It's like you cannot do a fish. You cannot give a fish to a person. You need to teach them to how to fish.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you need to understand what's the value behind. You need to kick off these discussions. You need to bring value with FinOps, not just do things. So
In-
yeah.
So, indeed, yeah, we need to teach people, and that's what our next thing is going to be about. We'd like to share with you something that we've been preparing for quite some time, and in 10 minutes we'll share with you all this stuff before we get to the top of the hour. So, we'll introduce you with about mastering FinOps, tagging and naming conventions, and governance. This is our second edition that we are going to be doing on summer, starting July 1st. So, this is why we create these things because we want to help people get better at cost allocation, at governance with tools that they already have. So, starting with this, what's this is going? So basically, this is a master compressed in 6 weeks. So we give 6 weeks master classes live with Alfonso, talking about the different steps that you need to go through to make tagging, naming convention, and governance in your company. We start from naming conventions, then we go through tagging, then we explore tools, examples, infrastructure as code, and all the automations that you need to talk about. And you can always share questions and interact with the community. We have a community forum on that. So it's going to be a master, but compressed in 6 weeks. As mentioned, our modules, naming conventions, tagging, infrastructure as code for tagging and naming conventions, the enforcement and the remediations. What we are seeing is like how we maintain and how we reinforce and how we remediate these tagging and naming conventions, and how we supervise, how we monitor that this tagging and this naming convention is being applied. And then I show and tell about what you have done. We have exercises and we have a final project at the end. So we would like to show that you show and tell what you have been doing thanks to what we share in the course. So who is this for, right? So we have FinOps struggling with cost allocation, cloud architects who need policies that are very used to policies, and they need to enforce tagging, they need to enforce cost allocation, they need to enforce naming conventions. Then also finance people, we have finance people wanting to learn about cost allocation, tagging, and how this affects them. And of course, managers that want to know and want to share about the tools that their team need to understand the cost, right? So, and of course, this is very important. This is independent of your cloud provider. We'll share examples in Azure and GCP and AWS, and everything can be done without being constrained for a specific cloud provider. So everyone can join. Of course, even though you can see there will be class recording, sharing the all of that. So in case that you are in a different time zone, or you cannot assist, or you get sick, or whatever, you will always have the recording of the class. So we have seen this very useful for several of our students, and this is great for people that are in a different time zone, but they can get used to the code, so you can make it on demand.
And you can see already in this image, if you go back, Victor,
Yeah,
this is the GitHub repository we share with the course attendees. It's huge. It's huge with samples of code, with examples on every cloud, with Terraform examples, CloudFormation, Bicep examples. So we have compiled everything there is to know about tagging and naming conventions in Google,
indeed.
Azure, and AWS.
So yeah, what we have here is the 6 weeks masterclass and the recordings about that. So that's how the value of what we are offering is. And then we have Q&A sessions and a Terraform introduction because we have seen that people can get a bit overwhelmed about Terraform, infrastructure as code, and everything. And we want to provide Q&A session, of course, to solve any doubts, and a Terraform introduction to know more about what Terraform is capable of, because this is mandatory for going through a training. And of course, you don't need to know anything about it because Alfonso will explain everything to you. So yeah, we'll have weekly sessions on demand and the Terraform introduction, plus um, the masterclasses and the recordings. And then, as Alfonso said, we'll have code examples in our repo with ready to use things. We want to see people taking action about immediately. So we have provided examples that are super valuable that you cannot find anywhere else. That is only available for the participants in the course, and they are ready to use. With that, you will be able to provide tools and to be able to provide the allocation immediately, just starting from the course. So we'll go through it in different classes, but first of all, we need to see everything that is possible. So you have here an example of what we have seen. Here's an AWS config tagging policy already defined for you with all the JSON parameters. Alfonso has put a lot of effort in doing this. So definitely, I would strongly suggest you to check it out because this is probably the most valuable thing to this course. And you will be able to apply tagging policies tested for AWS, GCP, and Azure, use tagging standards and code examples and things that you cannot find anywhere else. I've learned a lot from the Kyberno policies, the OPA policies, everything that is related to Kubernetes, and you'll be able to get rid of the complex tagging policies that are super difficult to code. And then understanding the Terraform, the code, Kubernetes from scratch, you have an example that you can work from, and this way you can get better from having a working example. And of course, you can reduce the workload of your FinOps practitioners and your engineers, plus knowing things that can be applied to all the three providers. So these are all the benefits that the code examples will have you. And of course, with these examples, the tagging and the governance will be done for you, even though you will be needed to maintain it and you will be able to learn about it. You'll be on point to be done on AWS, Azure, and GCP. Your tagging governance will be done for you. So it's time. It's time to save money. It's time to save and know where your costs are going, and that's the first step for you to start your FinOps practice and to get better in your cost allocation. So we are going here. We have everything that we have defined there. And then, of course, we have workbooks because in Azure, the capability of doing workbooks is excellent. And with this, you can control and oversee how your tagging and your naming conventions are done and how much it's being applied in your whole organization. So this is something that you can, from the very beginning, you can already apply in your org, and probably it's going to increase and be able to inform you a lot about how it's going. So this is crucial for us, and this is something that I have tested, and it works really, really great because with just a deployment, you are able to see everything and in Azure, and it's very, very useful and it's very clear defined, and you can share this with management, C-level people that they will easily understand because it's a very visual work. So, this took Alfonso several weeks to build, and now it's ready for you to use. And it's, something that you can take direct impact in your organization. Just at the very beginning that you join the course, you will get access to it. And as mentioned, you will be able to visualize everything in a glimpse and manage everything and control everything from there, and without having the effort of creating the custom dashboard or the struggle of compliance and naming convention and doing everything from scratch. You'll have a very good starting point for controlling, in this case, your Azure resources, right? So this is what we are offering here, the week's masterclass, the weekly session of Q&A, the repo, and the tagging, and this is the value that you are getting, right? And we also have a naming convention generator. So this is very useful because we have seen that there is a lot of distractions or a lot of lack of templates in doing the naming convention generator. So this is great for the naming conventions, and being able to have an Excel template to get to that point is great, and it's a great work by Alfonso to be able to provide this information. So, and you, as mentioned, everything is provided for you for free at the very beginning of the course. And this is how much the total value is. So of course we are not getting, charging you plus 80,000 euros for this price. But what would you think this would be worth for you? Like, if you have to say a price based on your experience, what you have tested, would you say this is the price about a course like that? I would love to have your insights in the chat, and then we can continue and we'll reveal what's the cost and the special benefit that you will have for attending this webinar. So looking forward for your answer. Feel free to drop any number in the chat, and then we'll tell you if you are right or wrong.
We want bets.
Yep. Okay. Feel free to drop a number. If not, I will continue. I will show you how much it is, because you will see that the investment is worthwhile. Okay, give it a minute. If not, we'll continue.
No one wants to bet, Victor. No
Okay,
betting mode.
so I'll continue and tell you about what our students say. So we had very good experience with this course. Talking about the fact that you can join the next cohort, which is a great thing that you can continue your learning in the next editions. And for people that got sick or for people that couldn't continue because of a job thing, and of course, that Alfonso is a great tutor and is always ready to help. That's, of course, well defined. And that we need to, be able to learn Terraform from scratch. So you can leverage also this, and this is what our students are saying. So yeah, this is the price, is 599 euros. So all the value that you get is less than 10x the price. So this is how much are we able to to put it, because otherwise it would be really really low, and the value that we are getting in this is amazing. As me, that I already ran the course, and it's really really good material. And as mentioned, there is lifetime course access. So every time that you don't need to get it now, but if you get it now, you can attend to this edition, or you can attend the followings. But maybe the price that we are offering today may not be able to be accessed in next edition. So I would encourage everyone to get it as soon as possible, because this way you guarantee your access for following editions that we'll be doing later in the year and the next years. And the price will be maintained and you won't have to pay anything. And of course, this is guaranteed. If you don't have you don't like the content, or anything doesn't match, or you have any other issues, please be known that your learning is guaranteed, that we have the reimburse policy ready for you. Okay. And yeah, you know, the next slide will show you what's the bonus for the webinar attendees, and how much this is going to cost you for and thanks to attending this webinar. Okay, so just for finishing it up, yeah, it's 299 with the webinar discount cost. I will paste the link in the chat right now, and thanks everyone who has attended.
You have
um
made it to the end.
yeah. So yeah, for free, it only will last this hour that we have, so till 8 p.m. Spain time. And feel free to drop any questions that you have, or any other questions that you have. You have our emails in
We
the
can set up a one-to-one, or we can explain together to
yeah.
anyone that wants more information how this works. We can even show you the assets more in more detail. So feel free to ask. And we also have the first 12 attendees, no, that did the course as testimonials
Yep.
that you can write and ask, of course.
Yeah, you can ask the people and you can ask us questions. You can, of course, finance this through your company. So we can issue the invoice and you can get it as common training, as things that you do in your training. So feel free to share with us the information and we'll provide you with the invoice and everything and we'll arrange everything so you can get it paid by your company. Okay, and I'll continue. The we like to do a summary before we end up the session is that we have taken about why tagging is the key to cost allocations, the great elements of a tagging policy, then how tagging is actually not that hard, and how small and large businesses can actually handle tagging, and how it works in complex environments, right? And by enrolling in our course, this is what you will get. So being able to create and implement a robust tagging policy, maintainable and a good naming convention, how you automate, which is the best thing, your tagging process, how you gain complete visibility into your cloud spending, and how to optimize your cloud cost and maximize your ROI. And then, of course, become a FinOps tagging expert, or as how we call it, a master in FinOps tagging and naming conventions. In this case, you will get a certificate by the end of the course. So feel free to post it online because this is going to be a certificate learning. So yeah, as mentioned, learn tagging from unique resources that you won't find anywhere else, sorry, from top professionals such as Alfonso. And you can join for this reduced price. And the only thing is that the offer will last till the end of the hour, so you only have 1 hour to get this price, and then we'll increase it later on. So you can always get access to the course, but not at this price. Okay. And yeah, this is it. Feel free to drop any questions.
Just to add to what Victor said, the idea for the course is to have a summer edition. This means that it will happen in July,
Mhm.
but there will be more editions. There will be more editions along the way, so no worries.
Yeah, so Jose asked here that the master is focused for technical profiles. It's for both technical and non-technical people. I would say that technical people will get more leverage from it, but we have had finance people that are still technical, that you can get information about how to apply, how to enforce, and you have the tools. So if you are a manager and you have people on your charts, you can always share the code with them or share the master with them. And if you want to know, the tips and tricks about tagging and naming convention and how to actually apply it, I would definitely recommend it for you. But the content is considerably technical because we have naming conventions and tagging explained at the beginning. This is more, let's say, for non-technical people. But then we go deep into automation and infrastructure as code indeed.
You need to be prepared. You don't need to have any knowledge, any prior knowledge, but you need to be prepared to digest everything because it's a lot of content in technical content. So it's not for technical profiles, as Victor was saying. We have had finance people that were saying they are so happy because they didn't know these features and all these things. So yeah, that's the approach.
Okay, great. Any other questions? I will drop our email in the chat, so in case that you have anything. Uh, thanks, Matthew, for attending. I will drop an email in case you have any doubts, and if you have any questions, feel free to drop a message over there, or you will get a reply from the Spain Clouds email, which is the same. So we'll get everything. And feel free to ask anything about timelines, support, etc., etc. Yeah, this will be starting Tuesdays at 6 p.m. So you will get all the info. And then the Q&As will be on demand, probably on Fridays, but the sessions will be Tuesdays, 6 p.m. Europe time, which depends on where you live. You can get it, but as mentioned, you will always get the recording. So you can check it next day, which we have seen it's very useful for us students. Okay.
And
Yeah.
also, two topics is remember next week we have another webinar fully focused on cost allocation. I will show you this cost allocation solution. And also, feel free to join FinOps weekly Slack. We have a big community there, and we can even discuss these courses further there. So Victor can invite you,
Yeah, we'll
and
share that right now. Let me one sec.
we have a help channel where everyone can ask, okay, I'm having trouble with this service, how to optimize this, and things like that. And we welcome everyone from
Mhm.
different backgrounds. So yeah.
Yeah, we have the chat, so you can share and join the community, and feel free to ask your questions in there. Yeah, that's it all for today. As mentioned, this is going to last till the end of the hour, so feel free to ask us and feel free to buy it with this because otherwise it's going to only increase. So, and with that, you can get the lifetime access to the course. Okay. So thanks everyone for attending. It was a pleasure to have you all here, and thanks Alfonso for having the today's session. It's always a pleasure to have you here,
I
man.
hope you like the content, each
Indeed.
one of you. We try to make it interesting and valuable for you. So,
So yeah, happy to have you all here, and feel free to drop any message that you have. And see you in the next week with our masterclass for the cost allocation.
okay,
Yeah,
everyone,
great,
have a
great,
great day.
Hano.
Yeah, really, really, really good to know, Hano, that you learn things and got ideas from here. That's what we aim for. So,
Indeed. Okay, so closing it up. Have a great day, rest of the day, and we'll talk next week. Okay.
bye.
See you, everyone. Bye bye.